So, you're thinking about taking your business global? It's exciting, for sure. The promise of new markets is huge. But let me tell you, the landscape out there is filled with hidden traps. Today, we're going to break down the essential checklist you need to navigate it all. Let's jump right in.
All right, the very first question you have to ask yourself is this: are you really ready for this? I mean, it's not just about having a great product. It's about deeply understanding the incredibly complex environment you're about to step into. If you get this wrong, it can honestly be the difference between massive success and total failure. So let's start building that checklist.
Okay, checkpoint number 1 is all about the formal rules of the game. You can think of this as the top-down structure that governments and legal systems put in place. You've absolutely got to understand the political and legal environment before you even think about putting a single dollar of investment on the table.
What's so interesting here is that you're basically looking at the fundamental DNA of an economy. On one side of the spectrum, you've got market-oriented capitalism. It's all about private ownership, competition, and the drive to innovate. Then, on the complete opposite end, you have government-controlled communism, where the state literally owns everything. Now, most countries are somewhere in the middle, but knowing where a country leans tells you a whole lot about your freedom to operate.
And that leads us right into a massive concern for any global company: political risk. Put simply, it's the chance that a government's actions could end up hurting your business. And let me be clear, this isn't some abstract academic concept. It can have very, very real and negative effects on your bottom line.
So what does this risk actually look like in practice? Well, you can think of it as a spectrum of bad news. The absolute worst-case scenario is confiscation. That's just outright theft. Your assets are taken, you get nothing. A step back from that is expropriation. The government takes your stuff but gives you some money for it, though it's almost always way below what it's actually worth. Then there's domestication, which is more of a slow squeeze, forcing you to give up control over time. And finally, nationalization is when the government just takes over your whole business or even your entire industry. Every single one of these is a direct threat to your investment.
Okay, so the good news is you don't have to just sit there and hope for the best. The approach to managing this is actually pretty straightforward. First, you just have to recognize that these risks exist. Don't go in with blinders on. Second, you plan for them. You have to have strategies ready before a crisis hits. And third, you figure out how you're going to compensate, meaning you have a plan to get as much money back as possible if the worst happens. It's all about being proactive instead of reactive.
Now let's switch gears and talk about a really tricky challenge: the gray market. This happens when your products are sold through unauthorized channels, usually because somebody is taking advantage of price differences between countries. You've probably seen it with things like fancy watches or electronics. They're bought cheaper in one country and then resold in another, cutting your official distributors completely out of the loop.
So how do you deal with this? Well, you've basically got two choices. On the one hand, you can be reactive. You can do things like cut your prices to compete. It works, but it's a short-term fix and it costs you a lot. It's basically firefighting. On the other hand, you can be proactive. You can invest in your official dealers, build strong partnerships. Now, this doesn't give you an immediate fix, but in the long run, it's super effective and low risk. That's like fireproofing your business. The choice you make isn't just about today, it's about building a stable market for tomorrow. Okay, let's move on to our next checkpoint. We've talked about the formal, written rules. Now we need to dive into the powerful, unwritten rules of culture. This is all about understanding people, what they value, how they think, and what drives their behavior. And I think this definition really nails it. See, culture isn't just about food, art, or holidays. It's the entire way of life, the whole belief system that's passed down from one generation to the next. And for a business, this is huge because it dictates everything from how you should negotiate a deal to what people actually want in a product. So how do you actually analyze a culture for business? Well, you look at a few key things. You've got your de facto indicators. This is the physical reality. Trying to sell heavy winter coats in a tropical country probably isn't going to work. Then you've got traditional indicators, which get into the core values. Is this an individualistic society or a collective one? Even legal indicators give you clues, because laws around things like product safety tell you what that society really cares about. And finally, all of this flows into your marketing mix, telling you exactly how to adapt your product, price, and advertising to really connect with people there.
And here's the bottom line on culture. A business deal is so much more than just a legal document. It's a mix of laws, sure, but also morals and informal customs. In some cultures, a handshake and the relationship you've built over dinner are way more important than the tiny print in a contract. Getting that can save you from some major headaches.
All right, on to our final checkpoint, and it's a big one: the money. This is all about the financial and monetary environment you're walking into.
We're talking capital flows, exchange rates, and most importantly, whether you can actually get your profits back home.
And if you want to see just how much this matters, check out this example. Back in the 1970s, $1 US was worth about 5 Indian rupees. Fast forward to 2001, and that same dollar was worth around 48 rupees. Now, just imagine you were a US company operating in India that whole time. The value of your profits, when you converted them back to dollars, changed drastically. That is currency risk in action, and it can absolutely wipe out your profits if you're not ready for it.
Another key concept you have to watch is a country's balance of payments, or BOP. Just think of it like a country's financial statement with the rest of the world. So why should you care? Well, it's simple. If a country is having financial trouble, if its BOP is under pressure, it might slam the door on foreign currency leaving, and that means your profits could get stuck there. And you always have to remember, no country is an island. Major global events, like the oil price shocks back in the 70s, send shockwaves through the entire global economy. These things can completely destabilize trade and put massive pressure on a country's financial system. So, monitoring these global trends is just as critical as knowing what's happening locally.
So, we've covered our 3 huge checkpoints: politics and law, culture, and finance. Now, let's pull it all together into one simple, actionable framework we can call your global strategic compass.
Think of it this way. Your true north is assessing the political landscape and all those potential risks. Your south is respecting the legal boundaries and adapting to the unwritten cultural norms. And your east and west are all about monitoring the financial systems and that currency volatility. If you can keep an eye on all 4 of these points, you've got a powerful guide to help you navigate the incredibly complex world of international business.
Now, this compass is absolutely essential for the challenges we face today. But that leaves us with one final, huge question to think about. In a world where technology like AI is making physical borders almost irrelevant, what's going to be the next great challenge? Will it be the formal laws set by governments, or will it be those unwritten, deeply embedded codes of culture? That's something to chew on.